Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're sitting there, you're scrolling through your feed, you're just mindlessly doing the thing, or you're flipping the channel and you're like, hey, I know those guys. How did they get on the news? I run a small business. I never get on the news. How did they get so lucky? Pro tip, it's not luck. And on today's show, our guest for Idea Collective Live, Dawn Dugle, is going to show you how to do it. Welcome into Idea Collective Live. This is the official meeting of the small business community. It happens once a week on Mondays at 3 o'clock Central. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. So this show is live on the Idea Coach Network. That means we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. I don't even know. We're probably on Mars now that the rover is on there, but we're broadcasting everywhere, and we're glad that you're here. And to make it easy for all of us to communicate, there's a unified chat. So if you have something you want to ask Dawn or other folks on the show, drop it in the chat. We'll work it into the conversation. But the simplest way to keep up with Idea Collective Live and all the content we're kicking out here on the Idea Collective is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we really, really appreciate that. The show is sponsored by Bank59, which I've learned to do this now. If I raise my left finger and go like this, I point right at the I know, little things that amuse only me, but that's kind of fun. Bank59, Serendipity Labs, and the Idea Collective collaboration community for small business owners. Now, later on in the show, we're going to tell you how you can get 1 year free in the Idea Collective if you are a partner with Bank59. It's quite a value, and we're really grateful to them for showing it. And we're going to check in with our man, David Bellman, who's having a huge week because his new book is released tomorrow. We'll get the inside scoop on that and learn a little bit more about the Young Guns main event that's coming up later this week as well. So let's get down to it. Today's guest is Dawn Dugle. She's an author, speaker, and award-winning storyteller who spent nearly 25 years as a journalist. I even had the chance to work with her at Radio City here in Milwaukee. Great person. She's met business leaders and entrepreneurs who've had great stories, but they didn't know how to tell them or, better yet, sell them. As a result, their businesses were suffering. So she's helping people now grow their businesses and their companies by using storytelling in sales, customer service, and marketing. Please welcome my friend, Dawn Dugle. Dawn, it's
Hello.
So great to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. And I know that they're all wondering, like 25 years. Yes, I did start when I was 5 years old. I was a tiny wee baby. Yeah, let's go with that. Oh my God. I can't believe it was that long. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you. And so Dawn has had not only just news jobs, but news management jobs. So like you've done pretty much everything in the news biz. Is that fair to say?
I have, mostly because either they needed somebody to do it or learn it. And I thought, well, I could probably learn how to do that. And as a result, it built the resume. And then people would say, okay, well, great. Let's put you on this next job, or, hey, here's this promotion. And it was a whirlwind, really. But yeah, I've done every job in the newsroom except run a satellite truck, because I wasn't an engineer, but and
Right.
Thank goodness, because those guys are amazing. But I've done everything else. So
Well,
there's
today,
no excuses.
we want to talk about decision making and what gets on the news and how do we get on the news? Because we see businesses get on the news. It's like, hey, I want to get on the news. So I want to start with like the beginning. Before we talk about how to do it, I want to go behind the scenes. How do news stations actually pick what's going to get on the air? How do they do that?
So it seems like when you're on the other side of it, when you're in a business or you're watching it on TV or on the internet, you're thinking there must be some magic, some, tome somewhere of answers. There is no such thing. It is all about the human beings who are in the newsroom. And story ideas come from two places, really. It's either somebody has emailed into the newsroom with a release or a tip, or somebody like a reporter has a contact and they've been developing a rapport and they know of something going on. But both of those things really can't happen unless there's a conversation and a relationship built up between those two people, which is actually a lot harder these days with multimedia journalists and folks who are really doing everything. They're running cameras, they're writing, they're running their live truck or their live backpack, whatever live capability they have. So they have less time these days to really develop those conversations. And unfortunately, that can be a problem when you're a small business owner trying to connect with the news.
Now, you mentioned something that I think is important to highlight. People think they see the people on TV, the news reporters, and all they do is look for great stories and they hold up the microphone and they talk about it. But you mentioned multimedia journalist. So in the last, would you say,
yeah.
15 years, there's been an evolution of what that job is. They're not just reporters anymore. And I know this might be a little bit in the weeds, but for people trying to get their stories on the air, I think it's important to understand what those people actually do. So can you describe that?
So a multimedia journalist, and really, I'd say probably 75% of the newsrooms in the country have gone to this model where instead of just being a reporter, now you are the reporter, the photographer. You write and edit your video. You write your story. You edit your video. You upload it to the web. You write the web story. You're doing the social media for it. You are cutting smaller versions of your stories for later newscast in the morning show. You are going live at 5, 6, and 10, or 5, 6, and 11. You're wearing a lot of hats. And in the middle of all that, in the 5 minutes, that doesn't even give them time to really take a break or go to the restroom or, stop. My family gives me such grief for eating so fast. And I said, I'm sorry, it's all the years in news where you would just shovel it in because you did not have time it's like, I don't digest it. It's like, I don't really enjoy food because I'm just shoveling in, but they really don't get a dinner break. They're just running and gunning most of them are from the minute they get in the door. And, and so that's really what a lot of our journalists have become. And it's hard. It's hard for them, and they're busy. And if you can make their life easier as a small business owner, that can actually work really well for you. And that's what I the number one thing I would get asked when I was in the news was, how do I get my story on the news for free? And I'm like, you got to just tell somebody about it, but it's not quite that easy. But yeah, you got to tell people about it. You got to know who to contact is really the biggest challenge.
And I want to get to that. But the reason why I'm going through all of this is I want people to understand who aren't in the business how it actually works. And I've had the pleasure of sitting in the news meeting where you're actually figuring out what's going to be shown and what's not. So when you're picking, so to paint the scene as I remember it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the afternoon meetings that I would go in, I would sit in the room and I'm like a fly on the wall because I'm terrified to say anything. And all the news bigwigs are sitting around and all the news reporters are sitting there and they're literally throwing out story ideas.
Yes.
There's a big whiteboard and everyone's writing down on the whiteboard what all the story ideas are. Why are some stories picked and why are some stories ignored? Like as the person, and this was literally, if I remember right, your job to help decide what got picked and what wasn't. So in your head, what are you thinking when you're trying to decide why you should cover something and not something else?
Everything always came down to the viewer, to our audience with me every single time. And when someone would pitch a story, it would always be, okay, why does our viewer care about that? Or why is it important to them? Is it because we've been following the story and we owe them an update? Is it because it affects their bottom line, their wallet, their children, their house? You've got a lot of times in newsrooms, you've got a lot of young people who come out of college. They don't have a mortgage. They're not married. They don't have kids. But yet the target audience in a newsroom, from a newsroom perspective, is people who have kids. They got their 2 kids, they got their house, they got the mortgage, they've got they've got a lot of things going on that our reporters didn't. And so really getting in the mindset of, okay, what do I need to tell my audience today that is going to make their life better? And I came up through the producing ranks where those are the people who put the newscast together and they decide what order the stories go in. And so every single time I would tell people what I did, they're like, what? I thought the anchor wrote those things. And I'm like, oh,
oh
no. I mean, Mike Jacobs wrote a lot of stories for me.
That's true.
I have to give him a huge shout for that. And Tom Curran in Tampa, they were fantastic. And Ron Oliveda in Austin. I can't
see, now you got to start listing them all. You can't do that.
But they would really help out. But for the most part, your producer is the one who puts it together. They write it. They put everything in order. And when people would ask me, okay, what does a producer do? And I'd say, okay, they're the ones they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones who decide, what you need to know and what you want to know. They're giving you those stories. So you may need to know it's going to snow today, or you may need to know school is closed, but you might want to know that a certain celebutante is getting divorced. Mm-hmm. Is it going to make any difference to your wallet? Probably not, but you do want to be in the know when you go to work, or, when you're talking to your family around the dinner table. It really comes down to what is in it for the audience. And that was always the number one question. And when I would teach the younger journalists, the greenies coming out of college, I'd say, look, you got to tell me, what is the story? Why does it matter to the target audience? And what's it going to look like at the end of the day? Are you going to have audio? You can have video, whether it be graphics. How are you going to tease it? And teasing that is, how are you going to get people to watch it and be interested in it? So there's a lot of stuff that you got to have together when you're pitching a story. And the best ones were the ones who could do that pitch in 30 seconds or less. Mm-hmm. So very much like an elevator pitch. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where I wanted to get to, because unlike some person that shows up on LinkedIn saying, I can get you publicity, Dawn actually has called balls and strikes on hundreds, thousands of stories. No, yes, no, go find more and come back to me. Like, I've seen her do it. And I wanted to go behind the scenes there because it will help get us to this point now. And this point is, it's the audience. So when you're pitching your story, it's about, why would the audience care? No one cares that you did a thing. People care about what you did and why their viewership should care. So with that in mind, let's talk about the storytelling. So you have an event in your business, right? And now you need to come up with the story of how you're going to pitch it to the newsroom. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah. And and I'm glad you brought up events, because so in my career, which was a long, long time, I know we've already established I was 5 when I started.
You were 5.
I was 5. When I was putting the stuff together it started as a speech and then it turned into a book. When I was putting the stuff together, I thought, how many emails did I get in the entire time I was a journalist? Like, let's just ballpark it. And it was 2 million. I got 2 million emails during my career. Do you think I read 2 million emails? Absolutely not. So what is it? People would send emails and they'd say, oh, the Dog and Pony Show is coming on Saturday. And I'm like, and I should care about that. Why?
Right.
Because people feel like if it's an event, and let me just be very clear about something. If you can schedule it, it is an event. If it can go on a calendar, it is an event. So ribbon cutting, city council meeting, anything that is scheduled, that's an event. The story is why the event is taking place. And the story is the thing that is going to matter to the audience of the journalist, either the TV, online. I say the TV like I'm 100 years old. We're going to watch the TV. We're going to be on the TV and on the interwebs. We're going to put it on the interwebs. Yeah, I live in Florida now, so it's like I'm surrounded. But, you've got to figure out, what is that story? Why does that audience care about the ribbon cutting? Maybe you're cutting a ribbon on a playground that's strictly for handicapped children. That's a great story. But why is that happening? Like, what happened? Well, there was a young girl who had a brother who was handicapped, and he was in a wheelchair and he couldn't go play on the playground, and she wanted to do something for him, so she raised money for this playground. That's the story. The event is the ribbon cutting. You can go there to get the story, to shoot the story, but you've got to tell the story of what was behind it. And so it's very, very important to wrap your head around events versus stories, which is, most people have a hard time with that.
And thinking about events, and then what's the story of the event? If it can be scheduled, it's an event. Now, see, that's gold right there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about making events come to life and positioning a story around your event. Should we be thinking about ways to dress up our events that turn into stories, like, I'm going to have the kid in the wheelchair here, I'm going to have the family here, there's going to be a great visual, we're going to cut a ribbon? Like, should we be thinking about pictures and shots as we're thinking about pitching it?
Absolutely, because I have not worked in one newsroom where I have ever drawn a picture for someone to put it on the news, either online, on TV, on radio. I mean, radio, yeah, a little bit, but even that, there's online presence. You've got to have some visuals to go with it. And you want to have the most visual story so people will remember it. I mean, we're talking, people are inundated with like 5 to 20,000 marketing messages a day. So how are you standing out? Hopefully it's visual and people really connect with that. And video is a great way to do that. So what does that look like? What are you going to offer the journalist at the event? Who will speak to it? If you work with, and I saw this a lot when I was working in the news, where the CEO would want to be the man with the plan and in front of the camera, but he may not have been the best storyteller. He might not have had the best story. So it's like, okay, sometimes you got to like step back and say, all right, go with the person who's not polished, because their speed, the way they tell the story is way more hard. Like the little girl with the playground, I actually did cover this story, and she wasn't polished. She hasn't been coached, but she was cute as a button. And normally we would run sound bites at like 10 seconds or 15 seconds. By God, we put like 45 seconds of her on TV, uncut, like uncut. That is unheard of. It
Yeah.
just did, but it was so emotional. And that's the other thing. Is it an emotional connection with an audience? And I'm not talking about crying. I'm not talking about falling apart. I'm talking about hitting people right where they live, and something that connects, a connection with that audience. That's always going to be the gold every single time.
So if we take our event, we think about it as
Mm-hmm.
a story. Why would their
Yep.
audience care? Would it be appropriate to then do a little bit of a role play? Okay, I'm the reporter that
Yeah.
shows up. Where are they going to stand? Who are they going to talk to? What are they going to shoot? What's going to go on TV? To think through those things before you even pitch?
Oh, I would recommend that a lot. Practice. I know not everybody can, we can turn on the camera and they're confident and they're comfortable. They freak out or they say a lot. I have a problem with so. I say so, and I'll start a conversation. And it's like, no. But if you practice it, turn on the camera on your phone, practice it, practice what you would say, role play with a friend. I mean, everybody and their brother has seen some movie with a reporter in it. You just play pretend for a minute and have them ask you the questions and see how you react to the pressure. And
Yeah.
actually, let them come at you. Like give them some pressure. You're not really going to get that in real life unless you're hiding something from the journalist. But at an event, you're probably not going to be, grilled like you're under the spotlight because you
Yeah.
committed a murder or something. So
Opening the playground won't get you the third degree, right? Oh,
that's right. That's
look
right.
at the kids on the wheel. That's great. Pan over here. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
All right. So
yeah.
to this point, we've had a conversation about how the news biz works, the type of thing that the news folks are looking for, how to take our event and turn it into a story so they may care. But let's say we do all that stuff and we've got a story that we think someone should cover. What do we pitch and how do we go about getting coverage for our business?
Okay. Now I'm going to say something that is going to make my PR peeps cringe. They're going to fight me on it, and I will meet you in the alley. I will fight you on this every single time because they learned something in school that is not helping. You do not need to send a news release with a dateline, a full story, a CEO quote, and all this stuff in it. Remember those 2 million emails I got during my career? I would not read those. Here's what needs to be in your email pitch to whomever it is that you're reaching out to. What is the story? It's 3 bullet points, by the way. Here are the 3. What is the story? What does it matter to the audience? And what visuals and audio are you going to offer if they cover that story today? What's the story? Why does it matter? What does it look like today? Don't pitch a story and say, oh, I didn't think you wanted to actually shoot video of it. I mean, we don't want to be on camera. Don't waste their time, because guess what? You waste their time, you know what happens? Now you're on a list, and when you send in an email, they're not going to read it just out of because they've had enough of you. So don't be that guy. Like, oh, I didn't think you wanted to actually talk to me on camera. Yes, that is what TV news does. It's actually a very powerful medium, and it's powered by video and sound. You need to let that happen. So, and if it sounds really familiar to what we would do in the newsroom, it's because it is. It all comes down to that. What is it? Why does it matter? And what's it look like? That's it. 3 bullet points. So those of you who want to fight me on the news release thing because you learned it in a book that was written in the 1950s,
Ooh.
I tell you this. You can write your press release the way you learned it, or you can actually get your story on the news. The choice is yours.
Oh, mic drop. Wow.
I'm like, bam. Can you tell? Like, I've had I've had people come at me after a speech. Like, that is not the way. I was like, hey man, and how many of your stories are getting on the news? Yeah. That'd be 0. That's why they're not taking you serious. Now you can write that whole thing up, and you can, because inevitably we all have had that boss who wants to have the release and wants his name in there, or her name. I'm not trying to be, it's all dudes. It's the boss. Yeah. Fine. Write the release. Put it as an attachment to the email, but publish it on your website. If you're going to have to do the work anyway, go ahead and publish it there, but don't send it to the news. The news isn't going to read it. They might read it for more background, but they've still got to go and track down the story themselves. They can't just, let me just say this, they shouldn't just be taking your news release and running with it on the news. Now, I know there are some places that do that. I did not work with those people, but they are out there, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So. Yeah,
gotcha. That's a whole other interview, right?
That's a whole other interview. Yeah. And if you're in a smaller market where, you don't have as many people, you don't have a lot of breaking news, they're always looking for stories. The best time to send an email to get coverage and get a lot of coverage is actually Sunday morning. I've done this with a lot of clients. They have, maybe during the week, it'd be a story that would be just a small video of what we call a voiceover, a VO. But on the weekend, they would turn it into a much bigger story because they didn't have anything else to talk about. So I would just email in and be like, hey, are you looking for a Sunday story? Here's one. Boom. And here's who's available. And you know what? Every single time they would call me and say, where can I meet you? And I'd be like, I'll meet you here in an hour. Let's go. Every time.
Would you send that Sunday story on Sunday? You'd send it on Friday for Sunday? What would you do?
It would depend. And this is where it really helps to get to know your journalist. In a smaller market, you're talking to either the assignment manager or an assistant news director. They're the ones that are going to be picking the stories for coverage. And so, or your reporter that you've done stories with before. But I always would just say to them, like, look, if I have a weekend story for you, when do you want me to send it? And sometimes it is Friday, sometimes it's Sunday. And, there are going to be times when something comes up and it happens to be Sunday. Don't worry about waiting, because they need stories. And if it's a good Sunday story, a good Sunday night story, guess what? They're going to run the heck out of it on Monday too during the morning show. So might as well roll the dice.
This is Idea Collective Live. We're talking with Dawn Dugle today, and we're talking about how we can get your business on the news. And this is real stuff, because Dawn was in the newsroom, ran newsrooms forever. So we're getting the inside track on how to get your business on the news. This episode is sponsored by Serendipity Labs, Bank 59, and the Idea Collective. I'm your host, Pat Miller. So we're just getting to the good stuff. If you've got questions, drop them into the chat. But I want to talk about establishing those connections. In the old days, we just pick up the phone, right, and call the front desk. Is that still viable? Should we be connecting with people on social? How would you go about connecting with the right people?
Phones? What are phones? What are these phones? Okay, I'm going to give y'all the best tip ever. And y'all are going to love, your journalists are going to love you. I can promise you this, and they will always remember you if you do it right. Take them food. Take them food. Take it into the newsroom. But here's the tip. If it's a morning show, do not take them donuts. No, take them a pizza at 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh. Susan Kim did that one time. She brought in pizzas at 7 o'clock in the morning. They were hot and fresh. I have zero idea what kind of witchcraft she worked on that to make it happen. But I'm telling you, when I work mornings for, God, probably almost a decade. And I got so sick of Krispy Kreme donuts. I love you, Krispy Kreme, but I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. But people would just bring dozens and dozens of donuts in the morning because they're like, well, you're the morning show. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we've been up since yesterday. By 7 o'clock, by 9 o'clock, and I'm ready for a pizza and a beer. This is dinner time for me. So they, think in terms of what you would like at that time of day for your work. I love going in the afternoons and taking hot chocolate chip cookies and little things of milk to the newsrooms. There you go. There's a little tip for you too. But take them some food, get to know them. If you have, the real key is, why are you trying to reach these journalists? Like what kind of stories could you help them with? So for example, I'm an author and a speaker, but I also have some expertise in some other areas. So when I go and talk to journalists, I say, hey, if you ever need, or by the way, I also am connected to all these other people who could talk about these other things. So, if you ever need a story on animal abuse, I have a guy. If you need somebody to talk about running a restaurant in freezing weather or COVID or a water shortage, I know a guy. So I can be if you could be a connector, they may not necessarily interview you, but you could be the go-to source for them as well. You work with a chamber of commerce, and there's lots of people in a chamber of commerce who could speak about stuff. That's a golden opportunity too for local journalists to connect with a chamber to say, hey, we've got a story about this. We're trying to localize it. We're trying to show how it's impacting this community. Who do you got? And that's helpful too. So taking a list of topics to them, taking them some cookies, taking them a pizza, take them some donuts, anything with food. Newsrooms will not turn that down. Even when we were in Florida and we had the anthrax scare and all of our mail was irradiated, food could walk right through the front door. I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but you don't really stop and think about it. You just eat the bagel and then hope for the best. So that's they will always take food because,
So we've got some questions. We got some questions coming in from the audience. Let's get a few on the air. Steve wants to know. That's the wrong question from Steve. I'm sorry about that, Steve. I clicked the wrong button. The chat is moving so quickly. We have so many people that are coming in with questions. Let's do this one from Nicole. Great. Nicole wants to know, so who's the best person to send an email to, or if you're going to bring in food, who should you contact to get by the front door? Because another thing that you don't know, if you haven't been in a TV station, is it's like a secure, legit secure building. You can't just walk into the newsroom. So how do you get past the front door, and who should you email or bring food to?
So this is what I suggest to you, is that you should get to know who the gatekeeper is. And that's usually the assignment manager or the assignment editor. They're the one that is at the desk. They're answering a million phones, the people that still call, emails, all that stuff. They're the ones that are going to decide who gets in the front door. The other thing so get their name, when they're going to be there, and also ask the best time to bring the food. I liked to come during their afternoon meeting because they were all there. I could introduce myself, maybe pitch a story, give them my cookies, and get the hell out. And nobody's ever been mad about that. Nobody's ever mad. The thing about the email is every newsroom that I've ever worked with, and I think Pat could probably verify this from his experience, there's usually some sort of main email that goes to many people. So like news@WTMJ.com. I don't think that was it, but TMJ4.com. I can't even remember. I've purged that from my brain. But news at whatever, or newsroom or something. There's some umbrella email that will go to 10 or 12 people in the newsroom. That's the email I would get. And then also your individual people, because here's the deal. If your contact is Pat and Pat takes a vacation. We don't let it happen very often in TV news, but every once in a while we let people out of a newsroom to go get some sunshine. And he's off, and you've got a great story. It would get lost in his email. So send it to the newsroom, the whole newsroom, and also your person, or give them a text or what have you. Social media, you can certainly reach out that way, but email is still the best way.
A quick follow-up on that. Many of the news channels have on their website, contact us at email address. Is that a legit email address?
The ones I've worked with have been.
Right.
I've seen there's some newsrooms that the websites aren't updated. I'm like, dude, your email is broken. What's up with that? They're missing out on stories. I mean, you could certainly call into the hotline if you've got a tip, but then you got to hope somebody answers it.
All right. So I found Steve's email, or Steve's question. Let's get Steve's questions on the air. So Steve wants to know. So you mentioned about being available when the news crew comes. So is being available for an interview enough for audio?
Yes. If you're the storyteller, so if you're the one that's going to be speaking, you should be available. And the other, one of the things I'm going to tell you is the best time to be available is at 3:00 in the morning. I've got something going on with this chat. I'm trying to get out of the way. Can you still see me, Pat?
Yep. You sound great.
Okay, great. If you can be available at 3:00 in the morning for the morning show, you're actually going to get quite a bit more coverage than if you were going to do it later on in the day. If you can go on the morning show, you're going to get 2 to 3 minutes of coverage every 15 minutes. And if that morning show is 4 hours, I'm not a math person. Words are my thing.
Yeah.
Y'all can figure out that. That's better than a 15-second soundbite that gets rehashed 3 or 4 times in the newscast. So,
and that's really interesting, because another thing that many people don't know outside the business is that the morning shows are getting more eyeballs than the 10 p.m. newscasts in some markets. Isn't that true?
That's absolutely true. It's actually it continues to be a growth area for news. And you want to think about how you think about your routine. Most people get up at the same time every day. They go and whatever the routine is. In news and morning news, people are turning on the morning newscast at the same time every day. They don't always get home at the same time every day, although most people are still working from home. But they're not always done at the end of their day at the same time. But the start of the day we always start out with a lot of promise, It runs off the rails in the afternoon. But, the morning show is always good. And they're always needing content. They always need content. And this is a great way to help your stressed out journalist and get some coverage for your business.
All right. Welcome. So we've only got a few moments left. So if you have a question for Dawn, this has been absolute gold. We are like hacking the news algorithm here. So if you have any final questions about getting your business on the news, drop it into the chat right now. So is there anything that we haven't covered, Dawn? Because you have so many great ideas and ways to get the attention of journalists to get our small business on the air. But is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover?
Yeah, I think the main thing is before you do anything at all, you really got to figure out what your story is. Who are you? Why do you do what you do? Who do you help? That sort of thing, because that's really the base for everything else you do. Your marketing, your sales, reaching out to the news. You've got to know that story first and why it's important. And I got to tell you, when you can connect with the why you do what you do, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. If you could figure that out, like I started consulting because I saw so many businesses that just didn't know how to tell a story, and they couldn't connect with customers, the news, other businesses. And I thought, I feel like I could help them. And I've really enjoyed doing that, because then you get to tell the good stories that are going on and not the terrible news stories that I covered for so long. Figure out your story first.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for all the information. If people want to know more about you or ask you further follow-up questions or have anything else on their mind about covering, how can we get to know you better and learn what you're doing?
Yes, you can go to dawndugle.com, DAWNDUGLE.com. And I have my books. I got a novel coming out. It's fun times. There's a
Novel?
newsletter, all kinds of things.
Wait a
I
minute.
wrote a novel.
Novel? I just wrote a novel. You know, whatevs.
I just wrote a
Tell us
novel.
about the novel. What are you talking about?
It's called A Hot Flash of Homicide. An embattled police sergeant gets in a lot of trouble with her smart mouth and wanting to punch her boss in the face. But hey, perimenopause is real. And she's super ticked off about it. And she meets this really hot guy, and he ends up being a murder suspect, turns out. And she's got to figure out how to prove his innocence before she's arrested for murder. So
Wow.
it was a lot of fun to write. And I got so tickled because I was just like, I just let it out. I just let my inner author out. It was a lot of fun. And then I started on book 2. So it's a series, actually. But yeah.
Right. So when you tuned into Idea Collective Live today, did you anticipate pizzas at 7 a.m. and menopause novels? I don't think you did. And that's what you got today.
I'm telling you, this is magic right here.
I love it. Dawn, this has been great information. It's great to see you again. Thank you so much. And good luck on your continued success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, man, that was fun. Okay, so if you need to get on the news and you don't know how to do it now, well, that's your problem, because Dawn really gave us the great information that we need. Great to see her again. We worked together for a minute. She was on the TV side. I was on the radio side. And she was really always welcoming. As I would bop down the hall with a big, stupid idea, she would help me. Because, I mean, maybe you would believe that I had a lot of big, stupid ideas. And the TV people were so kind, especially Dawn. Okay, yeah, okay. Walking to Green Bay. Okay, yeah, okay. We'll cover it. And then I'd leave and they'd laugh, and that's kind of how it went. All right, so let's move on. Speaking of writing books, look at my guy, David Bellman of the Young Guns Movement. Woo-hoo. My man. Tomorrow is the big day. Tell us about it.
All right. Well, tomorrow is the launch day for the brand new book, Leadership Growth Hacks. So, hey, just real quick, I got to give a shout out to Dawn, because that was some great stuff, by the way. And I'm going to add one piece of advice, because I've been fortunate. I've been on the news a lot with our Operation Finally Home projects. And one other tip is, if you have the news coming to your event, I always made a custom jump stick for them, because the keep it easy thing, it's a real thing. So I made them a jump stick, and I would have like pictures of the families we were helping and the home and stuff like that. So when they're cutting their story, it's like, oh, I need a visual to drop in here. Boom, they have it. And I'll tell you what, they always came back when I asked them. So
that's
another piece of advice. So
yeah, that's fantastic. All right, so thank you for being such a giver. You can't even plug your own book without helping us. So let's set that to the side. Plug your own book, my man, Leadership Growth Hacks. So let me ask, how long have you been writing this book?
Well, that's a great question, because it started a lot longer than what I'd like to admit, but I wanted to do this for about 2 years. So I kind of started and I would stop, and I started and I stopped. And then finally, after the Young Guns event, I had a bunch of people come up to me and they're like, where's your book? I want your book on this speech. And I'm like, well, I don't have one. And so I was like, okay, I have to do this now. So it kind of put the pressure on me. So I started it, and it took really in earnest, I would say from end of April of last year till today, basically, to get it all done and out there. So, and this was sort of my COVID project. So I kind of did this because I was like, with COVID going on, I wasn't sure how things were going to go. And fortunately for me, my business has been very, very good. And it became a little bit of a stress to kind of get this all done on time. But here we are. And really what it's about at the end of the day is, if you're a type of person where you've just worked really hard and you just don't feel like you're getting where you need to be, if you wonder why some people get all the breaks and you don't, you feel stuck with what you're doing, even though you're trying to do the right things, then this book is for you, because this will help you break through. It's going to change your perspective on, why you're here, what you should be doing. And it's also going to, I think, teach you a lot of skills. It's going to teach you how to manage your time better. It's going to teach you how to attract the right people. It's going to teach you how to become a trusted source and, control your time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, build something that you're proud of with your business and your life.
So you see a P&L and you see the numbers, you see a bank account, When you hold a book that you wrote, what does that feel like? Does that feel different?
Yeah, I mean, it's the shining moment for me was, there's two things. One was when I hit the publish button on Amazon. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's no turning back. Holy cow. And because when you write this, like, there's a lot of business information in here, but I do have a couple stories in here. And there's one or two stories where I was like, oh my gosh, do I really want to share that with the world? But in order to actually get the point across, you have to share it, whether it's good or bad, or it makes you look good or it doesn't make you look good. You have to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to share and put yourself out there a little bit. So that was the one thing. And then when I got the author copy in the mail, I was like, holy crap, this is it. And then it was like, oh, it's, there's a couple of things as I'm looking through it, I'm like, oh, I don't quite like this, and I don't like that. So it was actually published like 2 weeks ago, and then you go back and you revise it. And we always knew that this was going to be the date tomorrow, actually, but you don't really, you got to kind of go through the process. You got to make some edits and things before you're really happy with the final product.
Yeah, well, it's exciting that you got there. Congratulations on it. So tell us how we can support you when it goes on sale. Tell us everything.
Sure. So it technically is on Amazon right now, but I would prefer that if you guys want to get a copy, please go on tomorrow, because tomorrow is actually launch day. And if you don't know this, Amazon is very funny about how they do the bestseller list. So tomorrow is the day we want to really push it. I've got all the categories built in there. So if you go on to Amazon tomorrow, I see they're popping up the link right now. You can click on the link and order a copy. Please consider ordering a couple copies for yourself, for your team, or somebody else that would really, enjoy the content in this book. Again, I know this is going to make a big difference for people because a lot of this stuff that's in this book is stuff that I learned the hard way, because I owned my business for a long time, and it just kind of felt like I kept doing the same thing over and over and wasn't getting anywhere. And I kind of changed my perspective, and I started doing some of these things intentionally, and it made a huge difference. All of a sudden, I was able to get involved with Operation Finally Home. I've been on TV 30 times with that. I mean, I've, spoken for Young Guns. I've gotten that opportunity because of all these different things that I've done. So it will definitely help you if you take the time and you read it and you apply some of the things that you hear in the book. It's going to make a big difference for anyone.
Well, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and partner with you in the Young Guns Project. And I'm really genuinely excited for you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much for sharing it. Thank you for everything you do here and the Idea Collective. It's fantastic. And you've got just a wonderful group of people. And I'm looking forward to having you guys email me after you read this and go, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened.
Yeah. Look at the results I got from your book. That'll be a huge payoff, and hopefully that happens. So tomorrow's the day. Let's ring it up for David. Leadership Growth Hacks, Amazon bestseller. How does that sound? Does that sound good?
Sounds fantastic to me.
All right, my friend.
Make it happen.
Good luck to you. Thanks for coming on, David Bellman, and his new book, Leadership Growth Hacks. And here's a little pro tip. Now, this isn't the 10 o'clock news, but if you write and release a real book, I'm going to bring you on the show because I know how hard that is, and that's something that deserves to be celebrated. So congratulations, David. We are excited for you. Now it's time to talk about what's happening on Thursday. So I mentioned the strategically placed Young Guns movement. Thursday is the main event, and we are so excited for the main event on Thursday. We decided against our better judgment to bring in Andy Wines, my fellow Young Gun.
A rare Monday occasion. I'm a guy that does things on Mondays, and I'm a lot for the beginning of the week. So I do appreciate the opportunity to come and join the Idea Collective live here on a Monday.
Yeah, it's great to see you calling in from the Bat Cave where you're at today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So Thursday's a big day. I'm going to put the graphic up on the screen, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds in old school radio feel. Why should we attend the Young Guns main event on Thursday in 3, 2, 1?
The Young Guns main event coming to you the 25th of February, 2021. For those of you guys keeping track at home, that's Thursday of this week. This is why you should come. Knowledge, and maybe some networking even too. I found myself to be successful when I surround myself with people smarter than me, and God bless, we got some amazing people, smarter, more talented. Some may even say better looking. That's a stretch. However, Martin Lindstrom, Shay Robottom, William Deck, and my buddy Jay English all bring in great knowledge. I've had the pleasure and privilege of seeing some of the things they do, and I'm excited. It's very rare that a man like me gives up the mic, gives up the time, gives up the stage to people that I look up to. And so for this is a great opportunity I'm looking forward to, and sharing those people that I look up to with the greater world. So that's why you should come, because I'm going to be there and I'm not going to talk. That's a double win.
That's almost a triple win is what that is. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So Martin Lindstrom, international branding god, 7 times New York Times bestseller. He's going to be amazing. Jay English's speech, Gooder English, is incredible. Shay Rowbottom was just named the #1 LinkedIn influencer by Forbes. And William Deck, he won our popular vote contest. Over 2,000 people voted in the Who Should Take the Stage contest, and William won. It was amazing. So, Andy, are you fired up for Thursday? Are we going to blow it out of the water or what?
Absolutely. And these are people that I've been fortunate to surround myself with. Shay, for example, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years, and I watched her. She's Milwaukee native, and watched her go from a small media company to boom, the biggest thing on LinkedIn. And we are so fortunate that we have had people in our lives that have pushed us to get to where we're at, and now they're always willing to give time, to give back, and push entrepreneurship, because that's what makes the world go round. There's a lot of challenges in the world today, and this is an opportunity for us to take back some of that power, learn from those that have taught us, and then take things next level. With Jay and William, it's a great opportunity to see a couple of emerging entrepreneurs take the stage and share their ideas, because we are part of their growth and we are part of their success.
That's great. Thursday morning, be there, be square. Andy, will you be in the Bat Cave on Thursday morning?
Absolutely. I finally got my light working.
Yes,
this is I'm getting comfy. I might just sit here, for the next 2 days in anticipation.
All right, my friend. I'll see you Thursday. Thanks a lot. Andy Wines, Young Gun. So look, we had 3 of the 4 Young Guns on the call today. That's a power kind of day here on Idea Collective Live. All right, before we let you go, 2 things. One, we're going to get ready for some after party networking. So if you're on the call right now, no matter what platform you're on, hit that link as soon as we're done, because we're all going to get together across all the platforms into a Zoom room and reflect on what we learned from Dawn, say hello to each other, just kind of catch up. It's a way to get to know everyone that's in the Idea Collective community. And if you're not in the community, but you'd like to be, how about 1 free year? Thanks to our friends, bing, Bank59. Go to Bank59. It's the website that's right on the link. And if you sign up for a business banking relationship with them, they're going to give you a free year. Here's a pro tip. If you're already a business banking customer with Bank59, just hit the website and they'll give you a free year in the Idea Collective. Imagine having an entire community of entrepreneurs collaborating with you and investing in your success. It's unlike any community out there, and that's why we're excited for this partnership with Bank59. We would love to see you there. One other thing that Jennifer talked about before we went on the air, and I told her I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. We have an exciting new partner for the Idea Collective. Exciting, big, huge, monster, amazing. I can't tell you who it is yet, but next Monday, I'll be able to tell you who it is. And we are super psyched about it. So more details on that next Monday here on Idea Collective Live. So with that, let's hit the after party. The link is on the screen. A big thank you, of course, to Jennifer Buchholz producing the call. And she's the ultimate connector, my business BFF, working double time today. Thank you, JB. We appreciate it. Congratulations to David Bellman on his new book. And for Dawn Dugle, seriously, for giving us the secret formula to get on the news. Do the stuff that she told you, you're going to get on the news. That's just how it works. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Before you log off, make sure you hit subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we'd love to see you again here next week, Monday at 3. Okay, we'll see you in the after party networking. Thanks for coming by. I'm Pat Miller,